Hey guys, Aaron Wilson, back at NRG Stadium. Texans practice Wednesday. Some big stuff happening with the Texans. Nico Collins, as we'd reported, back at practice. Still in the NFL concussion protocol technically, but on the road to being cleared. And what that means is that he'll have to pass a baseline neurological exam. By him practicing, that means his symptoms are gone. And so the next phase in this is to practice again. And once he does that, in a few days, I would expect him to be cleared fully by Friday. Don't know if we'll get to interview him. Players under the concussion protocol are not allowed to conduct interviews. That's an NFL rule, and the Texans follow that rule. So at some point, we'll formally talk to Nico. I've spoken to him. He's in good spirits, and everything is trending toward him being back. And we can't wait to see what's it like once they have a passing game with the new weapons, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, and increased involvement of Xavier Hutchinson to go with Nico Collins. It's not just Nico Collins that's back. It's Christian Kirk that's back from a strained hamstring. So he practiced today, and he's on track to play on Sunday. So it's going to be very interesting to see how do they divide up the targets. And D'Amico Ryan said, hey, they got back two of their top playmakers. So he still includes Christian Kirk in that playmaker mode. But let's be honest, the big news is Nico Collins. That's their Pro Bowl wide receiver. And maybe this passing game takes a step forward when you have a Nico Collins to go with some of these other receivers, and maybe C.J. Stroud plays a little bit differently. How? Because C.J. will have to just hit the open target instead of force-feeding Nico Collins 8, 10, 12 times. What if it's 5 targets, and he's hitting on all 5 of those for 100 yards and a score? That would be great. The last time that Nico Collins played the Denver Broncos, of course, 9 catches, 191 yards, a couple of touchdowns, and Russell Wilson intercepted in the end zone by Jimmy Ward. So a couple years ago, seems like an eternity ago, but not that many years back. And of course, I remember when Derek Stingley Jr. and the Texans went to Denver as rookies, Kenyon Green playing in that game along with Derek. And Derek held his own for the most part against Cortland Sutton, but he's grown a lot, come a long way since that game. So let's finish with the injury report. Dalton Schultz, who looked dinged up to me on Sunday, turned out that he was. So he has knee and shoulder injuries. He's sore, but they do expect him to return later this week. Sounds like he's got a really legitimate chance to play. Just in case, though, Dalton Keene, who visited last week, tight end, fullback, signed to the practice squad. And they also designated Jakob Johnson for return. So having Jakob back gives you a player that can play tight end or fullback. Right now, the only healthy tight end on the active roster is Harrison Bryant. Harrison hasn't really made a big impact. He's played okay, but he's not Dalton Schultz. So they can also elevate a Luke Lachey. They can have a little bit of flexibility there with tight end. Of course, they were hoping to get Brendan Bates back, and then Brendan Bates was claimed off of waivers. So he's back with the Cleveland Browns. And then Denver Broncos also put in a waiver claim for Brendan Bates. And they wound up signing a 41-year-old tight end, Mercedes Lewis, who played against Texans coach D'Amico Ryan several times when he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So interesting. They go older at tight end. They're pretty banged up at tight end. They've got a lot of injuries. Laken Tomlinson didn't practice. That was rest related. He is 35 years old, so sometimes he needs a little rest. Dylan Horton listed as a knee, but pretty much rest as well, also 35 years old. So these older guys get some time off. Dylan Horton, not a major knee injury, but enough that he didn't practice today. Limited practices for Nico Collins, Jakob Johnson with hamstring, Christian Kirk hamstring, Jalen Petrie with a foot injury. No real concern at this point about his availability. And Braxton Barris with a chest injury looked okay at practice. And Elijah Huzzie, who was still on the non-football injury list after tearing his ACL at the East-West Shrine game. He is a full participant. We'll see, do they choose to activate him? As you guys know, Patrick Surtain, the NFL Defensive Player of the Year, he is out with a torn pectoral or damaged pectoral, but he's not going into injured reserve at this time, but he's not going to play. Then Marvin Mims is concussed. great wide receiver, return man. So they don't have him. And then Nate Atkins is missing with a knee injury. Limited with a neck, P.J. Locke, very good safety. And then Dre Greenlaw, he's back for this one, full participant quadriceps injury. And he's a feisty, very active, aggressive linebacker. Okay, so on Nico Collins, we'll continue to monitor that, but we expect him to play. So that's the good news. The bad news is Dalton Schultz doesn't look like he'll be 100%. But the Texans, they can always lean on something. You know what they can count on, and that's their top-ranked defense. So not only are the Texans the top-ranked scoring defense, but now they're the top-ranked defense in terms of yardage. So they are, fourth against the pass and fifth against the run. And so they've really turned the corner here with a strong defense, and they're going to need it because the Denver Broncos have a lot of weapons. They've got, of course, Bo Nix at the controls, good quarterback, running the 10th ranked scoring offense, 9th ranked offense in terms of yards. And Bo's been pretty solid for this 6-2 Broncos squad. He's already passed for 1,803 yards, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, high percentage system quarterback, pretty athletic guy. Overall, you just look at his ability to really convert a lot of plays. I think that he's a ascending player. When they run the football, of course, it's primarily J.K. Dobbins. He's got 634 yards and 4 touchdowns. Actually, is a Houston area resident. He lives in Cyprus in the offseason, trains out at Olin Athletics. Shout out to Dr. Min Liu and all the great facilities and great people out there at Olin Athletics. Also where Case Keenum and many other NFL players train in the offseason. Also Drew Scruggs. So Courtland Sutton, that's kind of the focal point. He's got 37 catches on 56 targets. He's got 3 touchdowns. They throw to Troy Franklin. He's got some speed. He's got 33 catches, 54 targets, 4 touchdowns. R.J. Harvey, their rookie running back, very versatile overall player. He's got some power. He's got some speed. Nice player. And they haven't used him a ton as a runner, but they like him as a receiver. There's some things he can do. He's a good overall football player. And we're going to get more into the offensive line and the task they have in front of them, but we'll touch on that a little bit. They have to get these guys blocked. Speed rush of Nick Bonito, 8 sacks. Broncos lead the NFL in sacks and total pressures. Just they don't have to blitz much. They've got Jonathan Cooper as another edge, 6 sacks, and then you've got 4 sacks from a power player and Zach Allen. It's been a very good free agent signing for them. He's got 22 quarterback hits. So they've got a lot of talent there all across this Broncos front. So Texans will have their hands full. Nick Bonito, 17 quarterback hits, 7 tackles for losses. And then, they sometimes will bring Jonathan Cooper up. They do a lot of things with Cooper. They're a pretty active defense. They have a good hard-hitting active safety. And Talano Afanga, I said that the right way. And then Brandon Jones, a rangy center fielder kind of safety. DJ Jones, another good player. They've gotten 4 sacks out of John Franklin Myers. John Franklin Myers, great technique. I've actually been around John at some off-season workouts these have. A lot of these guys work with pass rush coach Brandon Jordan, who tutored Jonathan Grenard and Jerry Hughes and Malik Collins. So a lot of his clients have a lot of success, and they hit the quarterback very often. So Texans definitely have to be on point. They still are looking forward to the challenge. I had conversations today with Ariante Ursary. I also talked to Ed Ingram and talked to Titus Howard informally. So we'll bring you those interviews. You can check them out in my Texans Sights and Sounds, which has some practice video of Nico Collins. And you can check out Nico running around and Christian Kirk running around, Braxton Barris running around, and of course what the guys have to say in the locker room, including some fun questions about Halloween costumes, Halloween candy, an introspective C.J. Stroud beyond talking about Drew Brees, and they used to dress up as Drew Brees for Halloween. We heard that a lot of talk about vulnerability and about religion, and I think CJ, very spiritual guy, had a lot of quite sincere things to say, and was interesting to listen to him talk about his faith. So check out that as well. Yeah, that's a big part of who CJ is. So that was interesting. He even talked about Justin Fields, someone he's known a long time, someone that has also kind of opened up lately. So, for CJ, talking about emotions and sort of kind of a touchy-feely kind of interview. He is a sensitive guy, and I say that in a good way. He's someone that's very in touch with his feelings and his thoughts, and he's, I think, just an interesting person when you listen to CJ talk. So, encourage everybody to listen to the message from CJ. Not espousing be religious yourself. I'm just saying it's interesting just from how does he approach life, because somebody's like to peel back the layers, peel back the onion a little bit, and get to know these guys. So he's showing you who he is. And I also talked to Daniil Hunter. He's very concerned about the plight of Jamaica after that Category 5 storm. He has a lot of relatives he has not been able to get in touch with. He wants to know how everybody's doing down there, and he's worried about people. So Daniil Hunter, who's a native of Jamaica, his family comes from Jamaica. He grew up here in Katy, going to Morton Ranch High School. So other side of it as well, not just only football. I know that's primarily why people are interested in anything with the channel, but we'll also show the other side of these guys, including some fun questions about Halloween costumes, Halloween candy, and a lot of people like Skittles, nerds. Some people are big chocolate guys, Snickers. So, check that out. Sights and sounds, talking about candy. I'm a Snickers guy. I like Snickers. That's my favorite. Yeah, let me know in the comments. Halloween costumes and what other things. I was Wolverine one year. I was a baseball player many times. I had a football outfit, and then, of course, I played football in high school at St. John's High School, and then it's all Catholic League, and then I was a linebacker at East Carolina University. So, that's some of my background. But I digress. Let me get back to it. And so we're talking to D'Amico Ryans, and we're talking about the pass rush. So Nick Bonito, not too many guys like him in terms of speed rush, very explosive, very quick first step. You got to stop him right away, and sometimes he just runs around people. As D'Amico stressed, they have to play their technique. They've got to be on point with technique. He says really strained to get them blocked. 5-man front, and just going to win one-on-one matchups. It's easier said than done. The last time they played a team like this, it was the Seattle Seahawks, and they couldn't get those guys blocked, and they didn't have a great plan. I thought CJ, kind of wilted under the pressure, and the offensive line did not step up. The San Francisco 49ers, they're not a good example in terms of, yes, they blocked well. So they blocked well against the Baltimore Ravens. In each of those cases, the personnel was not like this personnel. It wasn't like the Los Angeles Rams. It wasn't like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it certainly wasn't like the Denver Broncos, who are elite. So we're definitely watching this, and I don't think you can just say, they'll get it done, they'll be fine. As others have said, hope is not a plan. No, you plan for success. And I also believe your victories are earned before you ever get into anything. It's about your preparation. So they've got to be on point with the preparation. The good news is the offense is getting better and they're getting healthier. But they've got to get Dalton Schultz back. He's important. He's integral to this. And I would expect, of course, there was a lot of talk about this today because it's been working and they've been increasing it, the jumbo package with Blake Fisher. So expect a lot of those things to be employed and implemented as the Texans try to get these guys blocked. And the Texans, the other side of the football, the defense, they're definitely on point. They're competing, they're attacking the football, they're getting to the ball, they're making plays on the ball, they're getting turnovers. And D'Amico Ryans says they have not discussed their top-ranked status. I don't think they are chasing the stats. I'm sure they're proud of the stats. I know guys are. In fact, it's about playing well against Bo Nix, and the way he can get out on the edge, the way he can escape pocket, go up the middle, A and B gaps. They've got to be sound, and they've got to get him corralled. He's athletic, and he's a good thrower of the football. He's pretty disciplined in everything he does, and Sean Payton, outstanding coach. So you got to really, just like Kyle Shanahan last week, now you got Sean Payton. This is a Super Bowl winning coach, and he's someone that's very impressive. I don't know about that comparison between Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield. I think that, they both have some traits that are similar, but I think they're different styles of players. They look at Sean Payton, how you prepare for it, really high volume offense, lots of different plays, lots of variety, and using wide receiver on jet sweeps, getting in the wildcat, zone read plays. So, the Texans, they've worked on a lot of these things. They've got to trust their rules, meaning what are the rules for when they do this? Who's getting the first man out of the backfield? Who's committed to the pitch? Who's committed to the option? All these things, if they choose to run that, you got to be ready for anything. And, they have definitely done a good job of attacking. So for the Texans, and having the, amount of pressure, some of these things are situations that DeMeco Ryans, he's very familiar with because he was a player for the Texans, a Pro Bowl linebacker for Gary Kubiak's squad when Vance Joseph was coaching the Texans secondary. He's now the Broncos defense coordinator, does a really great job. And, they definitely have a lot, to account for, have their hands full against them. And, so it's going to be a big day for the Texans. They need to continue to have growth from C.J. Stroud. C.J., DeMeco Ryans a little more complimentary of him. I think that obviously after Seattle there was some criticism, and deservedly so. He didn't play very well. But he says today that C.J. has truly grown at his command of the offense, discipline with the calls in the huddle, discipline with the reads, where he's supposed to go with the football as the season progresses, just doing a great job of taking what's given to him. So that's what they want. They want him to play that way. And, CJ called it death by 1,000 paper cuts. I don't know if that's always what the offense is, but it definitely is small ball sometimes where they're trying to, get the football out in small chunks and have guys run after the catch the way Woody Marks did. That was a 50-yard play. That's a big play. It's an explosive play. Like that one, that's an example that DeMeco Ryans cited. The check down to Woody, and you get 50 yards. So that's what it takes. That's what they expect in this offense, designed by Nick Caley. And we'll get more into that as we talk to Nick Caley. I've got a lot of questions for Nick, especially after the breakthrough. I think it's definitely a interesting topic, how you mix and match now that you have Nico and you've seen this growth from the overall receiving core. By the way, Janice McNair, a co-founder of the Texans, the wife of the late Bob McNair, the founder of the Texans, who brought football back to Houston. She's going into the Ring of Honor on Sunday. Congrats, Janice. Unanimous decision, as Cal McNair and Hannah McNair said during their appearance over at the police department discussing National First Responders Day, and of course also talking some football. And when I asked some questions about them, they said, hey, this is a slow start. There have been some issues, but they feel like they're coming around. They've won 3 of 4, and they expressed a lot of confidence in DeMeco Ryans, his leadership, his culture. So interesting to hear from the owners in season. Don't always get to do that. So interesting conversations. We'll see about the trade deadline. I was wondering about that. Do I think they should make a move? I'm not sure. I think, they're a little thin at tight end. They could probably use another running back. They could probably use an upgrade at guard. What's available? Ultimately, do they want to burn some picks? Do they want to trade Christian Harris? Certainly, I think a change of scenery would behoove Christian. I don't really see a lot of other guys, like maybe trade one of the receivers. I'm not sure of that. I think they need the depth that they've got. So we'll see. And, like I said, we talked about football too with CJ, talking about the rush that they have with Bonito, with Cooper, who combined for 14 sacks. He says they played relentless football. I agree with them. It's a tough group. Zach Allen, just really commendable. And they like, you think about Woody Marks and the weapon that he is, the versatility, run, catching, blocking. And, they really like what they're seeing from him. That's from CJ. Talking about how they're utilizing Marks, using the jumbo package, the chemistry that's growing with Jalen Noel. We're seeing that with those two guys, the way they're playing. And, it's happening in the week. It's happening on game day, as he called Jalen. Super coachable. That's what everybody says about Jalen and all the good things he can do. So, yeah, some interesting stuff there to discuss the wide receivers. But having Nico and Kirk back, definitely the headline of the day, and not a surprising one. I was reporting and saying it and knew it would happen, but it actually has happened now. So Texans getting back some strength on the receiving core and offensive line. Hey, just like every week, lots of pressure on the offensive line, and they've got to do a good job. I think the Texans need a plan in case they can't block these guys. So what's the quick game like? Can you run the football? Can you establish the run against a outstanding Broncos defense? So this is going to really test them. And if they can get this win, this is a true quality win, guys. I won't, qualify this win. This is the toughest. This is a 6-2 squad. This is a really good Broncos team. And if the Texans win, then you got to really tip your hat to them, I believe, because it's a tough opponent. For some reason, the Texans are favored. I don't pay a lot of attention to the money line, all that stuff, but you look at it and you think, well, they're putting a lot of stock in Patrick Surtain not playing, and yes, that will weaken them a little bit for sure. This guy's a playmaker. They're one of these teams that I don't know if they can withstand not having someone. He's just a gigantic part of their defense, so we'll be watching for that. By the way, the Broncos offensive line, they don't get a lot of conversations about them, but they've only allowed 8 sacks. That's the least in the NFL. From left to right, Garrett Bowles and Alex Palczewski, left tackle, left guard. Center, Luke Wattenberg. Right guard, the guy with the big gut and the beard and the mullet, Quinn Minears, everybody likes him. Mike McGlinchey, a big ticket player that they signed in free agency last year from the San Francisco 49ers. Tight end is Evan Ingram. He's a good athlete, but they are banged up and not having Nate Adkins, so they signed old Mercedes Lewis. If Bo Nix was to get injured, Jarrett Stidham, former Patriots quarterback, is the backup. We've talked about J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, and they've got a pretty good blocking fullback, former South Carolina player Adam Prentice, who was previously with the New Orleans Saints. And you look at their defensive line, it's Zach Allen, it's DJ Jones, it's John Franklin Myers, it's Jonathan Cooper, there's Dre Greenlaw. In the front, Alex Singleton, Nick Bonito. They bring a lot of pressure. They've got a solid corner in Riley Moss, but he's not Patrick Surtain. They're going to plug in Chris Abrams-Drain as their new corner. So he'll plug in for Patrick Surtain. And, of course, the safeties are Talanoa Hufanga and Brandon Jones. So kind of going over some of their depth chart. They have Jaquan McMillan as their nickel. So a good group, but they'll miss something that makes them special, I believe, without Marvin Mims. And, of course, the great Patrick Surtain. So Texans, they got an opportunity here, but what are they going to do? What's the max protect scheme? How do you account for what the Broncos do? If they can get these guys blocked, and if they can move the football, march the way they did against the 49ers, then it's truly impressive. But we'll get into more of that throughout the week. We're going to talk more about the offensive line. We're going to talk more about trying to get pressure on Bo Nix against a good Denver offensive line that plays very well together. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. Please watch, like, and subscribe. And appreciate everybody that watches the videos and kind of gets to the end. Of course, I'm on Twitter and X at @AaronWilson_NFL. Instagram, AaronWilson7128. I'm on television with Randy McElvoy at KPRC2. And my articles are at www.click2houston.com. And I appear every Friday at Sports Talk 790. So I look forward to those conversations. And guys, I think we're in for a big week, but the season just got interesting at 3-4. And maybe they can get to 4-4, and we'll see. The Colts are running away with this division. We know that. Maybe the Texans can get in that wild card mix. And that's I don't think obviously it hasn't been a banner season, but it's still a salvageable season. And once you're in the playoffs, as they say, Bill Parcells used to say this, once you're in the tournament, anything can happen. Guys, thanks and have a great night. Bye.